What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guys, Derek and Cody, with you as always. Guys, we're wrapping down the draft weekend. First things first, want to say thank you to my man Cody for coming by this weekend at my house, celebrating and doing all this draft content. It was a long time coming, and it was a lot of work. Yes. 12 draft picks in the book.
15 plus hours. Lots of stuff. I mean, we went nearly 7 hours on day 3. It was absolutely crazy, but this is why we do it, man. We absolutely love what we do, and you guys are the reason for it. And, man, I tell you what, 12 picks, the most in the modern draft era, that is nuts for the Colts.
We're going to go ahead and end this one here with a going out and talking about all of these, doing a quick recap of all of these draft picks. Yep. The first thing you got to do, you got to start with the first rounder, and it was the most highly anticipated one of them all, Cody. Anthony Richardson is going to be an Indianapolis Colt going forward. So, I mean, this is very interesting because we heard from Irsay on day 3. Apparently, they said even if the Colts had the number 1 overall pick, they still probably would have taken Anthony Richardson on top of it. So, I mean, it just goes to show you how high Indianapolis thought of Anthony Richardson here.
Yeah, I mean, they've said a ton about Richardson ever since then. And, you know, they were praying that he was still going to be there at pick number 3, right? They were praying, hoping and praying that when that trade up came from 3, they were hoping that it wasn't a team that needed a quarterback, and obviously it was Houston. Sure, it was a sigh of relief for everybody in the Colts complex at that point, because that meant they were going to get their guy. And so we've talked about Richardson a good amount, just the raw athletic traits. And, you know, in his interview, his press conference yesterday before round 2, he really was, you know, I came away very impressed, Derek, and I know a lot of people did as well, at just his maturity, his answers. I mean, this guy doesn't seem like a 20-year-old player. He seems like he's a veteran. He's very methodical. He's very professional in the way that he does it. He seems like he's a guy that's been there, done that. And he definitely seems like a guy that's, you know, while he is still, yes, a very raw prospect, he definitely seems like a guy that is ready to learn, understands he's not even close to where he needs to be, and he's ready to put in the work and ready to get to go. And I really liked what he had to say in his draft and just how excited he was to be an Indianapolis Colt. Obviously, we know how much the Colts loved him in the pre-draft process, leading all the way back to August when Morocco Brown, third in line, you know, was texting Chris Ballard and was saying, man, they are putting on a show down here. I've never seen anything like this guy, right? And we really haven't seen anybody like Anthony Richardson from a physical standpoint. And so the Colts felt like the talent was worth the bet, was worth the taking at the number 4 overall pick. They do that, and, man, for the first time in years, the Colts actually have an answer, right? They actually have something, a quarterback that you know is going to be here for a couple years. They have some stability and they have some hope at that position. And we haven't seen that in a long, long time.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. The Colts from top down, I mean, fell in love with Anthony Richardson throughout this whole process. Kind of hard not to when you listen to him speak. Like, he carries himself like a 10-year veteran in the NFL when he's not even old enough to legally drink yet, which is just crazy to think about for his age and where he's at. I mean, obviously as fans too, I mean, from this whole process, I mean, even me, and I think you and I would have been in the same position in January. Never did we think that the Indianapolis Colts would seriously be considering Anthony Richardson previously to this. But then, you know, the more we watch the film, the more we listen to, the more information that comes out about this kid. You know, the more we hear people talk about him, the more you just fall in love with this kid, and the potential's through the roof. And, you know, fans started to feel the same way. You know, I mean, I give credit to Drake Wally and Landon Oliver, our guys, because they were the ones that were leading that hype train amongst content creators from the very beginning. And we kind of just fell in line at the same time, and then everything else started handling that way. So, you know, it was crazy. And I think the fans, you know, for the most part, have a sigh of relief that we now have an answer. We hope at some point, and then we will see how that goes as time goes along with Shane Steichen. And then you go to the round 2 guys, Julius Brents, where Indianapolis, who originally had the 35th pick in the draft, traded back once with Atlanta at 38, and then traded back again 6 more picks and felt confident enough in their ability to get this guy, and still were able to nab Julius Brents, the corner out of Kansas State, the 6'3", 203-pound physical specimen that this kid is. I mean, hometown native.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot to like about Julius Brents.
Yeah, so Julius Brents, the hometown kid, he said that his favorite player growing up was Bob Sanders. And so a lot of people say, you know, he's a bigger player. He definitely can lay a hit down. But Julius Brents, you're right. We haven't really seen a corner like him for the Colts in a long time. 6'3", over 200 pounds. And, yeah, I think he's going to provide a lot of good stuff. And the beauty of this, Derek, with what the Colts were able to do, trading down from 35, then trading down again to get at 44 to get Julius Brents, was there was no corners that came off the board between 35 when the Colts would have originally picked and when, and to 44 when the Colts did pick Julius Brents. So the Colts were able to get an early 4th-round pick out of it and an additional 5th-round pick, which they already had a crap ton.
Yeah.
They added another one, and they were able to still get their guy. So I really think that was a really good selection for them. People will debate how big of a loss was Brandon Faison, because of what he didn't really do well on the field. But overall, I do feel like Julius Brents really, is going to play from day one. I think he's going to be one of your primary outside corners right away. And I'm really excited to see, what he's able to do. He did, have that wrist injury. Chris Ballard said he probably won't be ready till the start of training camp. But overall, you get I think the best corner left on the board at that point, and you're able to still accumulate some draft capital. And Ballard said especially that 4th-round pick, they felt like it was very valuable and really good for them to be able to move all the way back there and still get their guy. So I really like that a lot. Julius Brents is a good player. I think he's going to thrive in this Gus Bradley defense. He's obviously really good at the zone defense, the kind of stuff that the Colts defense is really predicated on. And overall, I think it's a really good fit. I mean, there's been some people ahead of time that kind of mocked Julius Brents to Indianapolis at 35, and they said, man, he is like the perfect fit for Gus Bradley's defense. And so I really think that is the case here. And the Colts get a lot younger at corner, obviously, than they were last year. We'll see what Julius Brents is like year one. We'll see, because he isn't a perfect prospect, but he's definitely got the physical traits. He's very athletic. 9.99. Anthony Richardson was a 10. Between the Colts, 2 picks out of 20 possible for RAS. The Colts got a 19.99. So they were extremely athletic guys the Colts were able to get, and Julius Brents was, I think, personally, Derek, the biggest need outside of quarterback was corner. Because you had no depth. You really didn't know who your outside corners were going to be. I mean, we said it. If you were asking me before this draft, who's going to be your top 3 corners, you'd say Isaiah Rodgers, Kenny Moore, and Dallas Flowers.
Probably.
Right? And I like Dallas Flowers. We like Dallas Flowers, but he's an undrafted free agent. So corner was a huge need for Indianapolis. And they go and they get their guy here at pick number 44. I absolutely loved it.
Absolutely, man. And then the great momentum just kept going on day 2. In round 3, Indianapolis Colts at number 79 in the 3rd round selected Josh Downs, the wide receiver out of North Carolina. Folks, I mean, this one was crazy because we found out in the presser after that pick was made that Ballard stated that, for a half hour, the Indianapolis Colts tried to trade up to go get Josh Downs earlier in the 3rd round in fear of him not being there.
Yeah.
But yet we're still able to get him at 79. And then, of course, Reggie Wayne coming out stating that he told Josh Downs from the very beginning, the first time he met him, that he felt that he was the best wide receiver in this draft class, and it wasn't even close. And that's a high order given the fact that there were 4 wide receivers taken in the 1st round this year, and some really good ones too. Jackson Smith and Jigba amongst them, who, you had 2 first-rounders in last year that were running for Offensive Rookie of the Year that all said that guy was better than them. And here we are, Reggie Wayne saying that Josh Downs is better than him. So there was a lot of people. I mean, it was a shock that Josh Downs even made it to 79 because a ton of people felt that this was a second-round guy, an early second-round guy. So the fact that you got him in the middle of the third round, I mean, again, it was another amazing pickup for them.
Out of all these top 3 picks, he is by far the best value pick here for me for Indianapolis because, like you said, really the only thing that kept Josh Downs down from having, a 9 RAS score was his size. He's a little bit smaller. He's 5'9", 5'10", 170 pounds or so, but he's got everything you're looking for. He had over 90 catches last year at North Carolina. He is just a guy that just gets open. And I think Derek, is the perfect complement to what the Colts have in this offense right now. They have 2 really big receivers they've drafted the last couple of years in Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce. They have their power forwards. Now they got their guard. They got a guy like Josh Downs who can take the top off of the defense, who can get the ball in the slot, who if you throw him the ball, he can go. You make guys miss. It was a perfect compliment. And then you have Isaiah McKenzie, who you also signed. Mm-hmm. So now you have a good combination of size guys and speed guys.
Yeah.
And I think that's a perfect complement to what you need to do. And I'm just excited to see the ways that, him and Anthony Richardson grow together because, we talked about this before, the ways that the Colts in the past have surrounded their quarterback with a weapon, right? We saw the same thing in 2012. Andrew Luck goes in the first round. T.Y. Hilton goes in the third round. Colts do a similar thing here, quarterback, wide receiver. We're quarterback number 1, wide receiver, third round. And so, for a guy that should never have been there, I think it was a great pick, great selection. You get your speed guy. You get the guy there that I think makes a whole lot of sense for Indianapolis, and I think he's going to be a great player in this system. I'm excited the ways that Shane Steichen's going to use him because unfortunately, we've seen the other side where we've had good players and the fact that Indianapolis just didn't know how to use them in the past. So I'm just excited what he's able to bring to this Colts offense in general, and I really think it's a good fit here for Indianapolis, especially the value you get here taking him in the third round.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's a lot we can say about Josh Downs, and I'm sure that as the offseason goes along, there will be a lot to say about this kid. Again, the only reason why his RAS score was not in the high 9s was just due to the fact that, he's 5'7" and $170. Yep. So that's about it. But other than that, that was a great pickup for the Indianapolis Colts. And then you start getting in to the later picks and the day 3 guys. Round 4 at pick 106, you picked up Blake Freeland, tackle out of BYU. And then you also picked up in pick number 110. Again, I'm going to butcher this name, but we're going to figure it out as time goes along. Adebawari, the defensive tackle out of Northwestern. 2 guys who, again, have insane athletics. Blake Freeland had the best vertical jump of any offensive lineman in all of combine history, which actually was held by Tristan Wirfs a few years ago. Everyone knows Tristan Wirfs, the athletic freak that he was. And here's Blake Freeland, who even more athletic than Tristan Wirfs. Now, again, Tristan Wirfs, who, at that moment in time actually outweighed him, I think, by about 35, 40 pounds.
Yeah.
But, nevertheless, Blake Freeland, who is an athletic tackle and has played both right tackle and left tackle, so he's gone a multitude of different ways. And then Adebawari, who a lot of people will probably remember from the combine because of the fact that he ran a 4.4, was it? It was a 4.4 at 282 pounds. It's actually the fastest time that a guy of that weight has ran something like that in over 15 years. So an athletic freak at 282 pounds. So even more athletic than Aaron Donald at that position. So again, a lot of some great athletes here, Cody, as depth pieces.
Yes. Outside of Brent and Richardson, these were the 2 most athletic guys the Colts got, right? Freeland, 9.8 RAS score, and Adebawari, 9.7. So both these guys, absolute freaks when it comes to that, and both these guys are going to serve roles. Freeland's probably going to be your swing tackle. We don't really probably anticipate him, coming in and competing for a starting spot, although I do like the fact that, you now have some competition potentially for Bernard Ryman. You're not just going to hand him that position. You're going to have some guys that are going to really, really push him. I think Freeland could be one of those guys, The frame is obviously 6'7". You know, we know all about that, and he can definitely put on some more weight, which I think he will. I think he'll build that frame up 5, 10, 15 more pounds easily. I really do think he can do that. But, yeah, you just bet on, you know, the traits, but also, you know, he didn't allow a sack in 2022, Derek, and I think he had 2 penalties, and he's allowed 1 sack in his collegiate career. So all that being said, I think Freeland's a great pick here. The Colts needed a nice swing tackle, a guy that could help you out, you know, because you didn't really have that last year, and that was a really big, you know, issue, especially when you realize, oh, man, Matt Pryor's absolute dog crap, and you didn't really have a solution. You had to force Bernard Ryman to kind of play in there. It ended up working out, but, you know, you definitely need some tackle depth. I think that was definitely a need I had going into day number 3 and day number 2, and I think that was definitely one here. Freeland was a good pick here for Indianapolis. And then Adebawari, like you talked about, I mean, physical freak. He's probably going to play that 3-tech backup. We'll see what that means for Taven Bryan. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but the Colts, again, bet on a guy with some traits, and they think they can develop him. And, you know, Ballard talked about it. This is why, you know, I knew that eventually we'd probably get to one of these picks where we're like, they don't really need another defensive lineman necessarily because they already added Abukum in free agency. They added Taven Bryan. Do they need another guy? And they felt like they couldn't pass this guy up. The talent was too good. And it makes a lot of sense for what he's doing. Talked about, you know, how good of a player he is. And I feel like he's a guy that definitely you're betting on the traits a little bit more than maybe a Freeland. But he's definitely a guy that has the chance to turn into a really good player. And we've seen the Colts draft some of these guys with this athletic freak, you know, traits. Dio Adengbo a couple years ago, for example. So the Colts just continue to add into that. And, man, you talk about a defensive line room that has some very athletic guys. Man, Adebawari is just another guy that really fits and really helps out on this defensive line. And I know that Nadal is going to love him in that defensive line room.
And here's the thing: so it's pronounced. I'm going to try this. Adetomiwa Adebawari. I think that's how Adebawari. That's how you say it. So I'll have to go back to the Colts.com and get that down so I can practice that.
I don't know what it is with the Colts always drafting these defensive line players that we can never pronounce. We can never pronounce their last names ever. So.
All right, well, we moved to the 5th round. There was a bunch here. You have the first pick, which was Darius Rush, the cornerback out of South Carolina. And I think for this one, whether it be with Josh Downs or this guy, this was one of the most surprising picks because, again, everyone thought this guy was going to be taken early.
Yeah,
everyone thought this was going to be a 3rd-round guy, but sure enough, you're in the 5th round. A cornerback here, Darius Rush, and a lot of people were insanely happy about this because, I mean, again, this was a guy that was 6'2", 200 pounds, had a lot of potential in this kind of pick. So, I mean, again, it was really strange because I think even the national media guys had him ranked 3rd round. And for some reason, this guy just kept falling and was, again, probably – of value, might have been the 2nd best value pick in the entire draft.
Yeah, we couldn't believe he was there. We're like, man, are the Colts about to go steal Rush here in this 5th round right away? You know, pick number 3 in that 5th round. Are the Colts going to go do this? And they take him and they don't hesitate, right? And you talk about another guy. I mean, you got Richardson, Brent, Freeland, Adebawari, and then you have Rush right there at a 9.7 as well. So you just keep going after these traits. You keep going after this, and this is a guy that's huge. You know, another big corner that you're really, really, working and really believing that he's a guy that can come in and compete right away for a starting spot in the 5th round, Derek. You add more corner depth. We felt like the Colts needed to address corner double. They did. They didn't just do that. They did a triple. We'll talk about the next guy here in the 7th round in a couple picks. But, yeah, overall, I could not believe this guy was sitting there in the 5th round, at the top of the 5th round. I'm like, you take him and you don't look back because this is a guy that should not be here. And that's kind of the theme of this Colts draft in a couple ways, right? Even starting with Richardson. This guy probably shouldn't be sitting here at 4.
Yeah, right.
But you're taking him and you're betting on the traits. And that is just something, I mean, gosh.
I remember
7 of these picks, Derek, were over 9 or 9.7 or above. That's wild.
Yeah, and I remember when we were on the live stream and you were so adamant on that, like, get Darius Rush.
Yep.
And we were so praying for it. it was like basically what Zach Hicks would call a build-a-Ballard player.
Oh, yeah.
That's exactly what he is. So
we never thought he'd be there, though.
Never thought we would. So, and then the three other guys here in the 5th round that you got, Daniel Scott, basically a free safety out of California with the 158th pick. Will Mallory at 162, the tight end out of Miami, and Evan Hall, the running back out of Northwestern at 176. All three of these guys, basically, Cody, just more depth at positions that we didn't think the Indianapolis Colts really needed, but this is just more of depth purposes for all of these. I mean, Daniel Scott, again, had a 9.9 RAS score, great athlete, special teamer, a great captain on his team. So, a great character guy. Will Mallory, the fastest tight end in the entire draft class.
Yeah. So the RAS score wasn't as great, but you bet on the speed. You bet on what he can do in mismatches. You bet on the vertical threat. You already have Kylan Granson. You have Jelani Woods. You have Drew Ogletree. You signed Farrell Brown in free agency. And you get another guy that can just be a weapon down the field. You're just continuing to add. And also Evan Hall, what you talk about as well, right? You are just adding weapons for Anthony Richardson. You are trying to do your best, whether it's offensive line picks, whether it's tight ends, whether it's a receiving running back. Evan Hall, 55 catches last year at Northwestern. Not a great team last year at Northwestern, but Evan Hall was definitely, I think, the guy on offense for Northwestern, and he definitely fills that role that I felt like was an underrated need, Derek. So with Hall, you lost Nyheim Hines, you traded him midseason. You didn't have somebody that really stepped up to the plate, although I really liked what Zach Moss did. You didn't have a guy that kind of played that, receiving back role for you. You really didn't have that guy. And so you had a guy here that had 55 catches last year that was really tearing it up. He had I think it was like a 260-yard game last year in the air as a running back. That's crazy. Yep. So you add a guy there that's got he's got a lot of those things that you really like. As far as a running back is concerned, you have the backfield. You add that's an underrated need for sure that the Colts filled. And I really liked all these guys. And some of these guys can play special teams as well, which I think is helpful. That's especially going, for the guy they drafted. Daniel Scott, the free safety that they drafted. He'll probably, would realistically probably be that fourth safety in this room, but he can definitely help right away on special teams. So I really liked it a lot. I thought it was a good 5th round there for Indianapolis.
Yep, and obviously being headlined by Darius Rush, the rest of it was just icing on the cake.
Yeah.
And then 6th round with the extra pick that they picked up from trading back in the 5th round, actually. Titus Leo, edge rusher out of Wagner. So 6'3", 243 pounds, not a small school guy. Ballard does it every year, and this one's the wild card one. Just the real wild card. Like, I mean, does this guy really actually hang around on this edge group? Because, like we said, I mean, we already talked about it with Adebawari. There's just there wasn't much of a need of defensive line going into this draft to begin with, but they went and got one anyway. Yeah. So. What does that mean? I mean, they had to have fallen in love with him enough to say, like, this guy definitely has a chance on our roster.
Yeah, he's got very long arms, small school guy like you talked about, so he's going to have to figure out his way. The Colts have taken chances on guys like that in the past, so we'll see kind of how he fits into this defensive line room. But, I mean, definitely was interesting. I thought he'd be a little bit more athletic, to be honest, based off of the Colts, history of drafting guys. But overall, I thought it was a pretty okay pick for where they were there. And, going Chris Ballard, always adding to the defensive line. It's kind of how he likes to do it. So.
Yep, absolutely. And then the final 2 picks in the 7th round, you had Jalen Jones, cornerback out of Texas A&M, and then Jake Witt, a tackle out of Northern Michigan. Jalen Jones, a 4-star recruit coming out of high school, a guy that hasn't had a ton of work, but did have 12 games in 2021 where he eventually, went to Texas A&M and then started in 10 games in the fall. Missed a couple games due to injury, but, is another guy that's a physical guy and a taller, bigger guy like what the Colts normally do at corner. And then Jake Witt is just like Freeland, a big athletic guy.
They're about the same size.
They're about the same size, pretty much. Freeland is about an inch taller than Witt, but pretty much the same weight. and Witt is almost pretty much as much an athlete as Freeland is. So, Indy said if we're going tackle depth in this draft, we're going to go get some guys that, can swing tackle and can also insane athletes.
Yeah, interesting. Jake Witt, former tight end. We know the Colts have liked to do this in the past. He's interesting because when you look at his RAS score, the things that he is not great at, which would be, I think it was weight, and I think it was also strength, right? Those things can be worked in, and they go hand in hand, right? Mm-hmm. When he gets bigger, he's going to get stronger, right? Mm-hmm. And that's just kind of how it is. And that's something where he can, just like Freeland, he's going to build that frame. He's going to bulk up. He's going to get bigger. And I think you bet on all those traits and you say, hey, yeah, he's a small school guy here, Northern Michigan. Who knows? I've never even heard of that place. But, 6'7", 302, he definitely can grow into this frame a little bit more. You bet on the athletic traits, and you take a chance here for him in the 7th round with pick 236. So I like that pick because it is a guy that's not going to probably see the field at all this year. I'll probably factor in as maybe your 4th tackle on the offensive line. But, he has potential if he's developed properly to turn into a really good tackle based off the athletic traits you went with.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, guys, let us know your thoughts on this 2023 draft. I mean, what would you say? Early off the top, without really looking too much more into it, just at face value, what kind of grade or ranking would you give them?
I think based off of, and again, this will obviously hinge on Anthony Richardson. Can he develop into that guy? But based off of the upside that you got here, I got to go A for now. You got based off of the first 2 rounds. I'll just go the first 2, I would say 3 rounds. The first 2 days, right? I would say you added all 3 of the biggest positions you needed. You did. You added to it. And then you came back on day 3. You double dipped at the biggest position outside the quarterback. Mm-hmm. And you added some more help on the offensive line. And you got a couple high upside guys here. So, again, time will tell. But I think based off of how the first 3 rounds went, I couldn't picture, Derek, a better draft for, how the board fell for the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, there's legitimately 3 or 4 day 1 starters that were drafted. I mean, of the first 4 guys, I mean, all of them have a legitimate reason to potentially start day 1.
Yeah.
And that's a really great thing. I'll go A- just right off the bat right now. Maybe that'll change as I kind of look a little bit more into, the later picks and seeing how things went down. Mm-hmm. But overall, I'm very happy with this draft. Ballard went serious depth at a lot of different positions. And, of course, I think that potentially you could draft this down to a B only if the Colts don't address the right guard position in free agency.
Which they got, I think, the best remaining guard, which we'll talk about, undrafted free agents, the guy out of Bama. So, Again, I think they're going to probably monitor free agency. And that's what I've said, Derek, even going into this draft. People wanted guys like Osiris Torrance at round 2. And I was like, look, you can get still some free agent guards out there. And the Colts have even said they're going to continue to add in free agency. I really think they will. I think a guy like Dalton Risner makes way too much sense for them sitting there still in the free agent market. He's just, I think, a little past mid-20s, and I think he'd be the perfect fit for them right away. Sign him to a couple-year deal, have him compete with Will Fries out there, and I think you're set. You got your tackle depth. You get another offensive lineman in there at the interior, and I think you're sitting pretty for the offensive line.
Yep, absolutely. So let us know your thoughts, guys. This is the recap of the 2023 draft class for the Indianapolis Colts. Let us know your thoughts. Again, thank you so much for all the support on the draft weekend. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And as always, go Colts.